think the recording started.
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मद् आचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाची प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्मयेधि वेदस्य मानिस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्ततामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पक्षेमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः तुष्टुवाग्वं सस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्ति प्रीष्टं गिरिरिव ऊर्ध्व पवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमर्तमस्मि द्रविणग्वं सवर्सचं सुमेध अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Very, very nicely done, Kavita. I think everything was perfectly pronounced. There's one part where I think I may have misheard, but I thought the word sarvachasam wasn't pronounced correctly. Yeah, that's sarvachasam. Right?
Sarvasacham.
No, that sir is extra that you're saying. Sarvachasam, right? It is not sarvasachasam.
Is it savarsacham or sarvasacham? Because you know, in the English words, because I can't read the Sanskrit words, English words, it is saying savarsacham in the paper.
Yeah, I think what you said was sarvachasam. Matlab they were like two. There was an extra s somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So we were actually in the middle of reading Shloka 29 last time when we stopped. So we'll go back to that. Shloka 29. Yep. Okay. So we had just started it and then we decided to stop it. So we'll restart with that shloka. Okay. So maybe Kakuli, would you like to read with us?
Yes,
Let's start with the connection of Shlok 28 and we'll redo it. 20.
okay. The Lord tells about how such a yogi derives happiness in the world.
Sarvabhutasthamatmanam
Sarvabhutasthamatmanam
Sarvabhutani Chatmani
Sarvabhutani Chatmani
Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma
Iksate Yoga Yuktatma
Sarvatra Samadarshanaha.
Sarvatra Samadarshanaha.
So we had done the word meanings, but I will just quickly repeat and then we'll quickly go on from there. Sarva Bhutastha is established in all beings. Atmanam is self, the capital S self. Sarva Bhutani, all beings. Cha is and Atmani is in the self. Ikshate, dekhta hai or sees. Yoga Yuktatma is established in the yoga or established in the self by yoga. Sarvatra is everywhere and Samadarshanaha is evenness of vision. So this shloka is all about evenness of vision. Okay. Let's read.
With the mind established by yoga in the harmonious perfection of self, the yogi enjoys an evenness of vision by seeing the self in all beings and all beings in the self. The evenness of vision of the unified yogi everywhere. A yogi having the evenness of vision sees the self in all beings and sees all beings as different manifestations of oneself. Due to this evenness of vision, the sense of something being favorable and something unfavorable is completely eradicated. To such a man, everyone appears as a manifestation of the same self. This unified identity enables him to see himself as his own self. The expectation of happiness from anyone gives place to a solitude for the happiness of everyone. There is no place for affinity for some and aversion to others in his heart, which is full of goodwill for everyone. Just as different pieces of ice have nothing but water in them, similarly, he sees the same self in different forms of creation. Ornaments made of gold have different forms and shapes, but are worn on different parts of the body. But for the purpose of valuation, they are regarded as only gold. In the same manner, the yogi sees the same self pervading all. While dreaming, a person is affected by the various impressions of the dream, but on his waking up, the dream appears to be a play of his own mind. The yogi, having evenness of vision, is also like one awakened from the dream of the world.
Narayan, sorry, I was a few minutes late. Must say it feels very good to be seated back with Duina in one place to do this. So I missed the introduction, so excuse me if I am repeating myself a little bit. But essentially, evenness of vision is achieved when your mind is established in yoga. In yoga, as we understand this connection, right? So in the previous class, Tuina talked about the Sat Rajan Gun, right? Like you had the Satagun, Rajagun, Tamagun. So in our body, we also have many different bodies. We have the capital S self, we have the intellect and the subtle body, and we have the mind, right? So, sorry, not subtle body. We have intellect, you have self, capital S self, and you have the mind. Capital S self is the higher nature, is our higher nature, which gets reflected in Satagun. Intellect, which is dynamic in nature, which creates action for us, that is established in Rajugun. And the mind, this is essentially can be Tamagun or can be Satagun. And in this shloka, it says when this mind is established in yoga, so when it's established in divinity, not in sansar, that's when we will have evenness to be able to see everyone as the same. I'll give you an example, right? The example is, so Vedant is 6 years old, right? We go to a supermarket. He wants a lot of things. He wants chocolate. He wants lollipop. He wants Mentos. He wants candy. Somebody's released a candy in the shape of an elephant. He wants that. Somebody's released a chocolate in the form of Captain America. Like that's his favorite superhero. He wants that. So what is happening for Vedant is he's attracted to the sugar, but he's more attracted to the forms of the sugar as well. He's like, this chocolate has a wrapping of, has Iron Man. I definitely want that, right? But we have the knowledge that behind all of these different forms, whether it's chocolate, whether it's candy, whether it's that sugarcane candy, whether it's a lollipop, they all have the same ingredient, which is sugar. So we will, as parents, say, okay, you can pick any one, right? But because we have the knowledge and we have the evenness of mind, we are not attracted by those many different forms of chocolate. We know the end ingredient of all of it is sugar. So for us as parents, we will restrict Vedant. Similarly here with Bhagwanji, when we have evenness of mind, we will evenness of vision, we will observe all the forms. We will know all the forms, but we will know that they all stem from the same thing. They all are sugar. They all are Bhagwanji, right? And that's what this shloka talks about. The next 3-4 shlokas, in fact, we will be talking about this with a lot more detail. Haji Kakoli.
Yeah, so what I'm understanding is that you have to treat everyone as one. So everyone around, say in this class, everyone is a form of God or is oneness with God. So everyone is the same. But suppose you want to move away from certain people because they do not align with your thoughts anymore. So isn't it when you're moving away, you're already differentiating that I'm different from that person and hence I'm moving away. If I think that everyone is the same, then I shouldn't move away. I should embrace and be with that person and be in that bitterness or whatever it is. Is that not a conflict of thought?
Very, very, very nice question. So evenness of vision, the way to understand this is, we've said this a few times before. We'll examine it in greater detail now. Bhav mein samta, vyavahar mein bhinnata. Okay, so evenness of vision does not mean that you have to act the same way with every single person. You have to have the same level of emotion or the way or the thought or feeling that you have towards everyone has to be the same. But your actions, the way that feeling is reflected, has to be different and has to be contextualized. Okay, your actions will be very, very different in different contexts and with different people. Like I've said before, you have to have love and compassion for everyone, but that love and compassion, the way it is expressed, will be very different when you're expressing it for your parents, for your children, for your spouse, for your friends, for your colleagues. It's very different, right? And if it is not contextualized correctly, in fact, people are going to view it pretty wrongly as well. They will take it wrongly. So it has to be, everything that you do has to be contextualized within desh, kal, paristhiti. Okay. Now, specifically to your example of, somebody who you feel is not a satsang for you at the moment, because when you are in touch with them, when you are in their presence, there are negative feelings that come inside of you. How do you deal with that? The first thing to understand is the feelings that you are experiencing, the negative feelings, they are not being caused by that person. They are not emanating from that person. Those feelings exist inside of you. Okay. So there is something that you need to examine inside of yourself, and you have to figure out where this is coming from and weed it out one single piece at a time. That person who stands in front of you, who is bringing those emotions or those feelings out to the fore for you to experience, is just being a Bhagwan Ji ka tool. He's just being a medium to make you understand what is inside of you, which in other cases you will not even know. Very similar to how Krishna in the first chapter, when Arjun was full of ego and he said, take me to the center of the battlefield and show me who has come to fight me. What did Krishna do? Krishna did not take him in front of Duryodhan. He took him in front of his Pitama. He took him in front of Bhishma. He took him in front of Drona, to help him understand that there are feelings inside of you, there are hidden weaknesses inside of you that you need to evaluate. And those people became the medium for Arjun to experience despondency, experiences weakness, experiences attachment. So that attachment did not sit in Dronacharya, that attachment did not sit in Bhishma, it sat inside Arjun, right? And why it was brought to the fore? So that Krishna wanted Arjun to understand that these are the enemies inside of yourself that you need to fight. Okay. So similarly, if you ever experience anything in a certain situation, event, in front of a certain person, then know that he's being a medium. So let's be grateful to that VVGP that has made you aware of that enemy within that you need to tackle, which otherwise would have quietly, stayed in some corner without you even knowing that this thing exists inside of me. You would, I'm very calm. I'm a very calm, composed person. And then suddenly in a situation, this comes out and you're like, oh my God, like I don't recognize this person who just came out, because it was lying hidden somewhere. But those tendencies are there. Okay. Now that you've recognized that such a thing has come up, okay, I have this enemy to fight against. You have to examine and see. Some things are going to be easy for you to recognize, immediately eradicate. Okay. And then it's fine. But there are certain things that are much deeper, and you have to work on yourself over a period of time to cleanse them out. Which means that in the interim, every time you come in front of that person, those feelings will come up and cause you to behave in certain manners, right? Which you will not be very happy with, which will remove you from your divinity. In which case, recognize that for now, I am not a satsang for this person. And so I need to remove myself. Your first duty is towards your divinity. Okay. You have to remove yourself. If you need to remove yourself from that situation, that person, that activity, do so. It is a duty to yourself, and work on yourself to change those habits, those tendencies, root them out, work on those, and then come back into that situation to see, are you still behaving in the same manner?
So just a point here. At any point now, where it's not about the other person, as Tuvina said, and it's not about us labeling the other person, and it's not about us judging the other person. In this path, it's about us becoming aware we are not ready to deal with that experience, or that whatever experience that person brings. And if we are not ready to deal with that person, then the only thing left is to work on ourselves.
And by all
Right.
means, remove yourself from that situation. It's like,
Once your divinity, once you work on your own divinity, keep working on your own self, drop your own labels, drop your own judgments, drop your own attachments to likes and dislikes. I can imagine that, just imagine that if a yogi walked into that room and interacted with that person, automatically that person would see divinity in the yogi and the yogi would see divinity in that person. Right? So it's not that person doesn't lack divinity. It's just that we're not ready yet. We're not clean enough to see through all of it.
yeah, we are not able to connect to his divinity and we are not able to draw out his divinity. But a yogi will be able to. He will connect to that person very differently from the way we connect to that person. Right? So without labeling, without judging, know that I am not ready for this situation. It is good for me to remove myself from situation. Don't be harsh on yourself and don't be harsh on the other person either. It just is. Be grateful that we know now what I'm not ready for, and remove yourself. Work on yourself and then come back into that situation at some later time when you feel ready for it. And you will find a difference. Your ability to deal with situations or people that you initially thought were slightly more adverse or more difficult to deal with would increase dramatically over a period of time as you continue to work. And hence your ability to draw different aspects of people to yourself will change hugely. Right?
There was, so there's, I was going to give this example for the next shloka, but I'll share it now. So it comes back to the starting point of what I said, which is the mind can either be directed towards sansar, which is the way it is directed right now, or it can be directed towards Bhagwanji, right? And when it's directed to Bhagwanji, you see Bhagwanji everywhere. That's what happens. But when it's directed towards sansar, what happens is it naturally results in rag dvesh, likes, dislikes, happiness and unhappiness. So for example, I'll give you so there are four things. One is likes. I'll give you the example. If someone hits me, right? And if my mind is stemming, yeah, he's enjoying it.
Sorry.
Yeah. If someone hits me and my mind is in rag dvesh, in sansar, I'll be like, how dare he? How can he hit me? I'd probably want to whack him back. I'd have all these things. Don't ever talk to him. He's a bad guy. I'd go tell 15 people, पता है उसने क्या किया? उसने मुझे मारा. उससे बात नहीं करेंगे. We'll not talk to him from here on. Nobody should engage with him. That would be my natural response, or my response when the mind is in rag dvesh or in sansar. But if my mind was connected with Bhagwanji, he'd be like, okay, Bhagwanji wanted me to have this experience. The divinity in him, this may be me paying off some past karma, my prarabdha. If not this person, some other person would have got it. So I would accept it, but then understand why I deserve it. What did I do wrong? Why is this person upset? What is making the person upset? So you would react to that same situation, but in a very different way. And of course, if you are unsafe, then you'd walk away. You don't keep standing there, right? But you don't allow yourself to get into the mode of anger and the mode of judgment.
So same as like bhav mein samta, but vyavahar mein bhinnata. So you will still be, you'll still feel compassion for the other person. If he's behaving in a certain manner, then your compassion does not reduce just because that person is not acting in supposedly favorable way with you, right? Be grateful that he is also a medium of Lord who has come in front of me to teach me something. So the bhav, the feeling, the emotion is still that of respect, that of gratefulness, and that of compassion, right? It does not change. But your vyavahar will be different. Your behavior pattern will be different. If this is not the right space for me to be in, I will walk away from this. And that's okay, as long as your bhav remains the same.
Similarly, family, right? Relative. They come in our lives, they're all in our lives, and we get attached to them. I really like them for who they are because of everything that they've done, etc., etc. So over a period of time, we get attached to who they are. If they get into a marriage and that marriage is unhappy, which is something that happens, we get very attached to our person. My brother के साथ XYZ हो रहा है, और my sister के साथ ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है, and put the blame on the spouse and put the blame on the spouse's family. All because you're attached to your version of your family member or your brother, not realizing all this is his divinity. Your brother was who he was, or for me, my brother was who he was for me, for whatever I needed to experience in this life. And we lived together for 20 years, and now for the last 20 years, we don't live together. Because whatever prarabdha, whatever thing we had to do, we've done, or whatever else we have to experience, we'll experience as distance. But I wish him well on his journey, he wishes me well on my journey, and the love remains. And this is where, when you get attached to sansar, when your mind is attached to sansar, even positive things bring us down, because it eventually brings us to likes, dislikes, judgments, labels, rather than saying, no, this is all part of the divine play. What my brother or what my sister has to experience, they will have to experience. I'm not a savior. Bhagwanji is the savior. Till they look inward and they find their own meaning, then they will not find peace. Right? Similarly, the past and the future. Like, our mind also gets attached to the past and the future. Why did this happen to me? Or, even thinking about the past over and over again, where I have this habit, I call it the highlights reel. So like, I have a whole like personal highlights reel of things, of like like you go somewhere and you like had a really good party. A party is an example, but you had a really good party, you cracked a few jokes, everyone laughed, and you're like,
For next 3 days, I have to listen to all the highlights of the party, of how funny Abhinav was, how he made everyone laugh, how that particular joke was just so amazing.
So
He just keeps attached himself to that thing, and he'll keep replaying it, and I have to live through that for next 3 days. And laugh at the same time.
that's her prarabdha. That's her prarabdha.
That's my prarabdha.
So for me,
to remind you that you have to get detached from that.
Correct. So the mind does this, right? It goes, and for some people, the mind goes back to that same mistake that you made, and it plays it over and over and over again. Right? So that one mistake that you made happened for 10 seconds in real life, or 1 minute in your real life, but you've built it by playing it over and over again for like hours. All of this is just a way the mind functions when it's attached to sansar. So for me, it's attached to that sense of validation, right? In a subtle way. And that's why Nam Jap is powerful, because it takes away that thought and redirects it to Bhagwanji. Right? That whatever happened in the past, happened in the past. Okay, let it go. If I made a mistake, maybe it was for me to learn, maybe it was for the other person to experience. Let it go.
But that's how we keep all our other emotions alive as well. Like, if we get upset with someone, then we'll replay that particular action, that particular event that happens again and again and again. That person said something to us and it lasted 15 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. But in our mind, we will live it for years together. So we'll go through that hell again and again. And there's nobody else who's putting us through that hell except for ourselves. We keep putting ourselves through that hell, and every time that emotion becomes stronger and stronger and more powerful inside of us, right? So we don't get punished for our actions, we get punished by our actions. It's very, very important for us to remember. It's not that we get punished by someone else for the actions that we do. We actually get punished by our actions. Kakuli, does that help? Bhav mein samta, vyavhar mein bhinnata. So you can move away and you can have different.
Yeah. That helps.
Actions.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So go to Shlok 30. Sanchita, you read?
Slok 29 or 30?
30.
Shlok 29's connection to Shlok.
Yeah. The Lord tells about how such a yogi derives happiness in the world.
No.
29 connection. So it's in the preceding lines.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
In the preceding lines, the outlook of a yogi about other people has been given. Now the Lord tells about the yogi views the different circumstances which arrive in life.
Yo mam pashyati sarvatra
Yo mam pashyati sarvatra
sarvam cha mai pashyati
sarvam cha mai pashyati
tasyaham na pranashyami
tasyaham na pranashyami
sacha me na pranashyati.
sacha na pranashyati.
Yo is who, that person, who. Mam, me. Pashyati, sees. Sarvatra, everywhere. Sarvam is all, everyone. Cha is and, mai, me. Pashyati is sees. Tasyaham, for him. Tasya is for him. Ham, I. Na, not. Pranashyami, lost to view. Sa is he. Me is for me. Na pranashyati, not lost to my view ever. Okay.
Sanchita, you may read. Have you lost her? Oh, you're on mute, Sanchita.
No. I just have someone at the door. Can you just give me 1 minute?
No
Sure.
worries. Maybe Naina, can you read?
One who sees me in everything and sees everything in me, for such a one, I am not lost to view, and that one is not lost to my view ever.
So I'll give you just this. It's a very small shloka, but I'll give you an example here straight away. We've all been part of school plays, right? In school, we've done those plays where you have, when we were young, half the kids didn't remember their lines. They all dressed up in funny costumes. And when we were part of that play, we always had one teacher or two teachers who were the directors, right? And I remember for myself, when I was part of that play, whenever someone did anything right or anything wrong, all the kids would look at the teacher, right? Immediately. Like if I'm saying something and this person in front of me forgot the dialogue, both of us would look at the teacher. And the teacher would then like prompt or say or whatever, and then the play would continue. Or if I've said a wrong dialogue, then I'd immediately look at the teacher, or the teacher would get my attention and then redirect it, right? And this is partly how our lives are. We all are playing part of a play, and we're doing tons of things, but the director is the one that is directing everything. He's seeing everything and is involved in everything, but he's not on stage. But they're controlling everything that happens on stage. And when we feel lost, when we are helpless, like the story I shared last time, if we, God willing, never find ourselves on a raft in the middle of an ocean surrounded by sharks with no food and water, who will you turn to? Bhagwanji. There is nothing else we'll go to, nothing else we can rely on, right? So this is what the shlok kind of says, it is that once you are established in yoga, you will see that everything happening is visible to the director. Everything that is happening, you don't have to react to that. Look back at Bhagwanji, and he's seeing everything. He will help you direct it forward.
Additionally, what this also means is that you are seeing him in every VVGP. Okay, which is what the entire crux of Gita is, right? Karma Yoga that we've read so far. It's all about seeing him and connecting to him in every way. It is not about connecting to him in a puja ghar. It is not about going to a temple. It is not about doing a havan. It is not just doing nam jap. It is not like those explicit rituals that we follow or think about. And those are the only ways to connect to the Lord. He's saying you have to go past that and you have to see him in everything and see everything in him. When you can connect to all the entirety of your VVGP in that manner, that person is always connected to the Lord, which means the Lord is always connected to him. Okay. Now, that means that we have to change our view from where is God to where is God not? Because God is everywhere. So instead of searching for God in different places, you have to actually ask yourself, boss, God is everywhere. Show me a place where he is not. Show me a situation where he's not. Show me a person, a thing, a circumstance where he's not present. When we change our point of view to this point of view, from where is God to where is God not, then every activity, every VVGP becomes a lesson or a blessing. And everything becomes favorable because everything has happened for our ultimate benefit. Shreya. It is happening for our Shreya, for our ultimate welfare. And our ultimate welfare is what? Cleansing of ourselves so that we can forever be in a state of happiness and bliss, unconditional happiness and bliss, which is not linked to external things, so that we can stay in that space of calmness where nothing outside can ruffle us. That is how our view, our point of view, our vision has to completely change. Okay. We'll read.
Shall I read or?
Yes.
Yeah.
The yogi views the Lord in everything. Just as waves arise in the ocean, the water of ocean is in the waves. Similarly, such a yogi sees the Lord in everything. Accordingly, the yogi sees the play of divinity in all circumstances. The important result is that for such a person, the Lord is all around, and such a yogi is not lost to the Lord's view ever.
So in yesterday's class that we had, in the Saturday class that we attend, a very beautiful example was given by a fellow sadhak, and I thought it's just so relevant that I would like to recount it. So he took an example of a wave. We've always heard of the example of wave in the ocean, but the way he presented it yesterday, I thought was wonderful. So I would like to share it here with you. So think of a small wave, right? A small wave is on the ocean and it is going along, super happy, living a life. And at some point of time, it sees a very large wave that's created by tsunami. Okay. Now this wave sees the tsunami wave and sees, oh my God, such a huge wave. It is so big. And I can never be like that. It is in complete awe of that big wave. This little wave is scared of that wave, right? So there is this feeling of scare, there's a feeling of envy, there's a feeling of greed. I wish I were like that. I wish I had this large form. I wish I could have that power. I wish I could do all the things that that big wave is doing. Why am I not like that? Why am I so small and that wave is so big, right? Oh my gosh, look at all the power the ocean is giving to that wave, and so that is this big and I'm so small, right? So all those feelings of envy, upset, anger, greed, fear, anxiety is coming into this little wave now. Okay. Chugs along with those feelings. And then suddenly it sees a little bubble of a wave. And then it says, hey, look at this little bubble. It's so useless. It's got nothing. Look at me. I'm so big. I'm so important. I have such a long life. I can do so much. And look at this useless little thing. Like it has nothing. It cannot do anything. And it is like, and it treats it with a lot of contempt. right? So that feeling of ego, feeling of pride joins the rest of the feelings. The feeling of like, I am something, and like that attachment to my sense of self creates a lot of impact, right? So then the feeling of contempt rises in him about someone else who's smaller than him, right? So all of this thing, it's continuing to live its life. And then comes along another wave to whom it's chatting around and, experiencing, sharing experiences. And this other wave is much wiser than him, says, yeah, can you look at that shore in the for distance? We all will go and crash there, and that's it. That's the end of this little wave cycle. And now this wave sees that shore in the background. It's like, that place? He said, yes, that's where we all end. He says, are you serious? We'll all end there? That's it? This is it? He says, yes, that's where all the waves end. And now suddenly this little wave is filled with a feeling of massive mortal fear. All it can see is that thing. And it's not even walking towards it. That death is rushing towards it without any control of this wave. Okay. Now, when this it's filled, everything else is now quadrupled with that feeling of mortality, that rushing death towards it. It doesn't know how to deal with that, with this new emotion. And along the wave, that wise wave then directs him to a Gita class. And in that Gita class, when he goes and he gets his own facilitator, and the facilitator basically tells him, and this guy says like, I'm this scared, I've got all of these feelings, how do I deal with it? And he says, okay, look inside of yourself, go deep inside of yourself and ask yourself, like, who are you? What is filling you up? So that little wave looks deep inside, looks all over, left, right, center, everything. Says, this is ocean water. This is water like this. Okay. And what is inside that tsunami wave? Looks inside the tsunami wave. It's like water. I just see water everywhere. Says, okay. And what about that little bubble there? And he looks deep inside. He says, okay, it's just water. He says, all of you are just ocean water. There is no difference. It's only the forms that are different. But in substance, every one of you is the same. Even when this wave dies, you are still a part of the ocean. You are no different from the ocean, right? The quality is the same, only the quantities differ. In that moment of realization, that little wave changed from being that little wave, limited little wave, to an entire ocean. Suddenly it took on the entire ocean's form. And so it subsumed every small wave and every large wave. And then it doesn't matter if this one wave dies or not, because it's part of a much larger self. And it just sees the whole drama of one wave after the other crashing around. And it sees how these are just small forms connected to the same large ocean. This is how we need to transform our understanding. This is evenness of outlook, which comes from recognizing the real substance, the reality behind the unreal, ever-changing, ever-transient forms that we continuously see. We need to go beyond them. And once we go beyond them, then is when we are able to connect to each other at a spirit level. Okay. So again, changing the view from where is God to where is God not. Let's go to the next one. Vijay, will you read with us?
Now, about the style of functioning of such a yogi, the Lord says,
Sarvabhutassthitam yo mam
Sarvabhutastitam yo mam
bhajatyekatvam bhajatyekatvamasthitah.
bhajatyekvam ma sthitah.
Bhajatye, and then the ka by itself. Bhajatye ka tvama sthitah.
Bhajat ye
Ka.
ka tvama sthitah.
Beautiful. Sarvatha vartamano api
Sarvata vartamanu api
sayogi mai vartate. Sayogi mai vartate. I've lost the music.
sa yogi mai vartate.
Thank you. Sarva Bhuta is all the beings, and Sthitam means being present or being established. So Sarva Bhuta Sthitam, present in all beings. Yo, the person. Mam, me. Bhajatye is sings my glories. Bhajta hai, sings my glories. Ekatvam is eki bhav mein, with the same or the oneness of the feeling. Sthitaha, established. Sarvatha, in every way. Vartaman is behaving. Api, also. The, that. Yogi, mai, with me. Vartate, behaves.
One who sees me as unified presence in all beings behaves only with me, even though appearing to behave with different beings. Diversity in functioning, but evenness in view. In this shloka, the Lord says, the yogi who refers unified divine presence in all forms may have diverse styles of functioning based on diversity of manifestations, yet it would be regarded as dealing with the Lord only. Persons, happening, and circumstances keep on changing, but behind all their changing facets, the yogi sees the divine presence. For example, in ornaments of gold, the material is only gold, whatever their shape, size, and howsoever differently they may be worn on a different limbs of the body. Similarly, the yogi has unified vision of the Lord in all beings, might behave differently with different beings, but even in such diversified conduct, the firm conviction abides that all functioning is in the Lord alone. A gold ornament may be worn in the neck and another in the wrist, but the wearer values both the ornaments alike. The same way, maintaining the propriety of functioning diversely with the different beings, the yogi holds fast to the view that functioning is only with the Lord. There is one more point to be understood carefully. In the 29th sloka, the evenness of vision of such yogi has been extolled, and following sloka speaks of the diverse functioning of yogi. For example, the feet are the lowest part of the body and the head is the uppermost, but an injury in either part is treated with the same care. The feet perform the function of walking and head performs that of the thinking. Even though their functions are diverse, the care bestowed on the either is same. This exemplifies evenness of vision side by side with the diversity of functions.
Here, at in a past shloka, there was, when they were also talking about the evenness with which the yogi looks at the world, there was an example where whether it is a clod of earth or whether it is gold or whether it is iron, you will treat or respect them in the same way, but you will treat them differently, right? You're not going to keep gold outside your house and you will keep the clod of earth inside the vault inside your house, right? That would be foolishness. Similarly, you don't, you have your shoes, right? You treat your shoes with care. You clad your feet in those shoes because it protects your feet. You will treat them with the same respect. You will wash them, you will clean them, and you will wear them, and you'll be grateful for the function they provide to you. But that doesn't mean that you will replace your cap with your shoes, right? The way you need to act with that shoe will be similar to what is required for that shoe, right? So actions are going to be different, but you would treat them with the same respect, just as the example given here of how you will treat your hands, your legs, your face, your eyes with the same level of respect. And if something happens, you will treat them with same care, right? Now, another example that's given here, this is very interesting, right? Now, we've always seen the example of gold in various ornaments, of how they take different forms, but they are the same, right? So here we have an example of an earring made of gold and a bangle made of gold. So they both were fighting with each other. The bangle says, hey, it's not fair, you are worn, so you're worn on the face of the wearer, right? So everybody sees you. As soon as somebody comes in, they look at you the first thing, and then they always admire you, they think you're so beautiful. It's not fair, my life is not fair, I am bigger than you, and yet I don't, I stay so far, nobody really looks at me, I get mixed up in so many different other bangles, nobody really cares about me, right? And then the earring goes back and says, no, actually the wearer never sees me, the wearer is always admiring you in her hands, she's always looking at you, I don't even like, she has you in her view 24/7, whereas I only get seen only when she sees a reflection of me in the mirror, right? So they are fighting with each other, and they are going lamenting about their own about their lives, like how terrible my life is and how beautiful your life is. In another occasion, they are fighting with each other on how superior they themselves are. So they go on fighting with each other, thinking about how I'm different from you and how my value is different from you, until one day they meet a wise sage, which was a gold ring. So they meet this gold ring, and they are talking to him about it, and how they are very different, and these quabbles they have with each other. And that sage says, it doesn't matter what the form that you are, but in reality you're all made of gold, and that's your real value. And they both have to look back, and but they say, but that doesn't make sense, right? Yeah, we may be made of gold, but I am an earring, I have a very different form, whereas this one's a bangle, right? They are unable to look beyond the forms they have taken and the manifestation and the value they are bringing in the material world. They're not able to look past that to what they really are. One day, they all of them get taken to a jeweler, who then melts them down into gold and then crafts something else out of it. It is only then, when their form is fully dissolved, they realize, oh, they are completely, interminglable and unchangeable, and they mix with each other because their substance is the same. Now, why are we unable to look past this form? Why do we get stuck in the forms? And why are we not able to look past that? That is going to be a question that we will discover and we will understand deeper in the next sextet that we are starting. The next 6 chapters are going to be devoted to this very question of how to go past the forms, how to achieve this evenness of outlook, and what prevents us from achieving that evenness of outlook. Okay, we'll get to that in the next 6 chapters, and it will be a beautiful journey for us. Go to the next one. What time we have? 11:30. Okay, cool. So Bhagishri, will you read this?
Thus, explaining the attitude and attainments of a yogi unified with a transcendent, the Lord now speaks of the evenness of view of a Sankhya yogi and his attitude.
Atmaupamyena sarvatra
Atmaupamyena sarvatra
samam pashyati yo Arjuna
samam pashyati yo Arjuna
sukham va yadi va dukkham
sukham va yadi va dukkham
sa yogi paramo matah.
sa yogi paramo matah.
Atmau is like his own. Atmau pamyen is like his own. Sarvatra, everywhere. Samam, same. Pashyati, looks or sees. Sukham, happiness. Dukham is grief, unhappiness. Parmo is best. Best. Mataha is considered to be.
O Arjuna, a man who looks at the happiness and grief of everyone like his own is a preeminent yogi. The congenial sentiment of a Sankhya yogi. The Sankhya yogi views the self everywhere. From the feeling that the self is in everyone, Such a yogi graduates to the feeling that the self is everyone. For the yogi, not only all the beings become identical, happiness and sorrow themselves lose their different meanings. As such, the affliction of anyone by sorrow makes the heart brim with compassion, so much so that the yogi experiences what the other experiences. He is not at peace till the cause of the affliction is removed. This is not done with the egoistical feeling of obliging anyone or being seen helping anyone or for satisfaction of doing a duty. The yogi feels an overpowering compulsion in doing so.
So, stretching Tuina's example that she just gave about the gold, right? And coming back, connecting Shloka 31 and 32. It says in 31, one who sees me behaves only with me, right? So one who sees the gold behaves only with the gold or as the gold. And it only makes sense that if you see him everywhere, you behave with him everywhere, if you're only interacting with Bhagwanji, then you will have a higher sense of empathy. The whole world will become your family. Why not? Because it's the exact same divinity that is in us that is in them. That same reverence I have for my mother, that same experience lies with another lady who may be my neighbor or who I meet on the street. There's nothing different. It's just that we've restricted our world to make it small. But when you start seeing divinity everywhere, you start seeing your family becomes bigger. And the reason why the family becomes bigger, if I can go back to Tuina's example, which is after you're done being a earring, after you're done being a ring, after you're done being a bracelet, you go back to gold, right? You'll all eventually melt back to gold. And once you get melt back to gold, then eventually you'll come and take another form. So I may have been a bangle, but I may come back as a toe ring, right? And because you know that is the reality of where we are, it makes us far more empathetic and far more able to understand that, hey, the same experiences that I have as a toe ring versus a earring versus a bangle, they all stem from that same loss of identity. That we are gold, we are not the form. That is the crux of all our delusion. And because you can start empathizing, you start relating to everybody as Bhagwanji, and everyone's happiness and sadness becomes your own because you've become enlightened. And I think in the previous chapter we read, right? Enlightened people, the biggest thing that they can do is help others get enlightened, get rid of this disillusion.
And in fact, the person moves beyond the whole thing of this entire world is my family to this entire world is me. You move from doing to being. When you are in the space of doing, you're still thinking, you're still looking at, you're still finding Lord in everyone. And you're connecting to them as Lord, right? Yeah. There is still a difference between who you are and who are others. There is Lord, and then there is me. I am distinct from Lord. This is the space of you doing. And then you move to a space of being where you are no different from the Lord, where the world is not your family, the world is you.
So in this explanation, he's written a line. This person, he is not at peace till the cause of affliction is removed around the world, right? Now, there's a subtle thing for us to be aware of. Yeah, we are reading the Gita. Yeah, we're going through a journey where we are elevating our divinity. Our job is not to give advice to people who are in adversarial positions. And we are not better than them. Let's be really clear. But it becomes our duty to share our principles, share our learnings with people as well. right? It's rising above to experience what they're experiencing and acknowledging, yeah, that's, I can imagine if you think this way, your suffering would be a lot, and I can't imagine the amount of suffering you're going through. But would you like to have another way? What principle? What are you attaching yourselves to? Is it an outcome or is it a principle?
Yeah, but it can very easily become preachy. So be very careful
Yeah.
when you're very easily it becomes preachy. So I would say rather than teaching
That's why
somebody
it says
about these
the
principles,
yogi.
yeah, it should be about acting, behave, act yourself that way. Okay. Okay. Now we're reaching a very interesting shloka.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, about seeing divinity in others, in whatever acts. Of late, I mean, we are maybe not our personal experience, but in social media, we come across a lot of explicit videos of people doing barbaric things, be it to animals or things like that. And for example, I just came across a video where somebody was treating an animal very badly. It was very disturbing. And how do you look at such people without judgment? Like, I mean, it is very disturbing. So, I mean, how do you see divinity in such a situation? Like, we are not ready, but yeah, how do you look at it in a current situation?
Yeah. So an example comes to my mind, which I read in a book very recently, and it's very kind of like speaks directly to the query you had. So here, there was a man who had been badly beaten up, really badly beaten up, and treated very barbarically by someone, and left on the road to die. A doctor seemed like he was passing by and he saw this man, and he ran towards this person. And what were his first words? His first words were, "Whoever did this really needs help." Okay. So the victim of such cases needs help, but the person who did this also needs help. That person is able to do certain things to certain people or situations or whatever. That means that person has reached there, must have gone through a lot to be able to conduct in such a manner and not be affected. That person is going through a lot to get to this stage. So first thing is to have compassion. Compassion does not come because of a person, a situation, or a thing. Compassion is a feeling that must reside in you and has to be given to every single person, every single thing, every single situation. It's the most important virtue of a yogi. So when we are on this path, and if there is one virtue that we must cultivate in ourselves, that is of compassion. If somebody is doing some barbaric acts or behaving in certain manner, what has that person gone through to be able to do this? What has that person suffered? And how much help does this person need?
And how much he will continue to suffer,
yeah,
because of the act.
So that person needs a lot of compassion from us. Okay. Having said that, then there is about, there are several layers to this, right? The first layer is, what is it that we consume? Whatever we consume is going to have a direct impact on ourselves. And consumption is not just about food. It is about the social media. It is about everything we hear. Who do we spend time with? What do we hear? What do we speak? What are we spending our times in constantly consuming through our various senses? What is the purpose of that? Why are we consuming? What is the purpose? What is the outcome? What is the impact it is creating on us? For example, if you're watching such a video, what are you going to do after this?
No,
if there is nothing that we can do, right?
So not cut you off. Okay. So yeah, social media, your feed, you sometimes cannot control. Yeah. You are going to see things which you don't want to see, but they come in your consciousness. Now, interestingly, there are things that will come into your consciousness which are barbaric which you will just scroll past. It won't even hit you. You won't even press it. You won't even watch the video. I'm sure all of us, we just don't know, but we missed it. But there are certain things that come in our consciousness and they leave us with a certain experience, right? So the first part of the experience is important, that which is have the compassion, have the empathy, know for it to be true, that for a person to behave this way, this person must be deeply, deeply disturbed and unhappy and he needs help. The second part that is true is if this stays with you for a very long time and it continues to disturb you, then maybe Bhagwanji is asking you to act on it.
Yeah. So
Maybe
that is what I wanted to say.
Bhagwanji, maybe this is your consciousness rising above saying, you know what, I actually deeply care about animals. I deeply care about cats or dogs. Is there something else I can do or I need to do? Look around, look, and maybe that's how your duty will come about. Your purpose will come about for that video, right? So in each situation, it will be slightly different. But at no point, and at any point, right? Like even in the previous shloka, divinity is there everywhere. It's our inability, hamara antakaran, our mirror is dirty, which is why we can't reflect it back, right? So the work will have to be done on our mirror.
And sometimes our duty will become clearer to us along the way. It's not the first time, but we have to do manan on things that are connecting to us deeply. And this is where the more we cleanse ourselves, it will become clearer to us which thoughts to hold on to and which thoughts to let go. Every one of us gets affected by the stimuli slightly differently based on our own prarabdha and what is our duty and what will help us get to our ultimate welfare. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much.
Okay. On the other side, technical side, if you watched something on social media, it's going to keep feeding you with more and more of similar thought. So because it's all artificial intelligence and machine learning, you can change your setting to avoid if you really don't want to see that. Or again, as the other side is like if it's a choice that we need to make, right? Like whether that even once I'm seeing that it's keep on laying back and again on my mind, then it has to be acted upon. So that's the other part.
Yeah. I mean, social media is designed to stimulate, right, and engage. That's the crux of it. Now, it's the same conversation about the mind. It's about directing our mind to be stimulated by certain things. Now, do you want it to be stimulated by gross, by negative, by people doing wrong? Then that's what your feed will be. That's what your experience will be. That's what you will see. You will live in like, dislike, and judgment, and everything else. But if you then direct your social media to follow people who have much greater divinity than us, who talk about principles, examples of how they're living out principles, then all of a sudden, every time you go on, you get stimulated by those thoughts. So it just serves as a reminder to ourselves and our own principles, right? And in that, of course, there will be variations to all sorts of content, but that will be part of our experience. Yeah.
So now we'll get to an interesting shloka where Arjun comes out and he now expresses a doubt about all that has been told to him by Krishna in this chapter. And he's like, okay, now he's going to express that out and say, okay, I am not sure what you're saying. How do I even practice it? So he's going to express that and we will dwell into that one now. Okay? So Anmol, will you read?
Thus, the importance of steadying the mind has been explained in several foregoing slokas. Whatever the reasons, generally everyone considers the mind to be restless by nature. Hence, Arjuna asks,
Arjun Uvacha
Arjun Uvacha,
Yoyam Yogastvaya Proktaha
Yoyam Yogastvaya Proktaha
Samyena Madhusudana
Samena Madhusudana
एतस्याहं न पश्यामि
एतस्याहं न पश्यामि
चञ्चलत्वात् स्थिति स्थिराम्
चञ्चलत्वा स्थितिं स्थिराम्
योऽयं यो जो whatever ayam this yog then tvaya is by you proktah said samyen equanimity etasyaham is etah iski this of this aham मैं me न पश्यामि cannot see chanchal cause of restlessness. And what is the restlessness referring to? That of mind. So restlessness of mind. Twat sthitim. So chanchal twat, cause of restlessness of mind. Sthitim, state of. Sthiram is nitya, constant, enduring.
Arjuna says, O Madhusudana, I do not see the enduring sustenance of this yoga of equanimity taught by you because of the mind being restless.
Chanchalam hi manah Krishna.
Chanchalam him mana Krishna
Pramathi balavadridham.
pramathi balavadridam
Tasyaham nigraham manye.
tasyaham nigraham manye
Vayorivsu dushkaram.
vayorivsu dushkuram.
Chanchalam is again excitable or restless. He, because. Manah is mind. Pramathi is turbulent. Balam is strong. And dridham is unyielding. दृढ़ है, निश्चय है उसमें, या unyielding. Tasyaham, that. Tasya is that. Aham is me. Nigraham, control. Manye, I believe. मैं मानता हूँ, I believe. Vayuriv, like controlling the wind. Just like controlling the wind. Su dushkaram. Su is very. Dushkaram, difficult.
O Krishna, the mind is unsteady, turbulent, strong, and unyielding. I find it as difficult to control as it is to control the wind. Controlling the mind extremely difficult. In these shlokas, the restlessness of the mind is said to be based on the following four factors. Firstly, the mind is unsteady, implying that it is difficult to keep it fixed at one point. In fact, the mind is not unsteady by nature, but due to the deliberate efforts of past several years to keep it oscillating between expectations of happiness and apprehensions of sorrow, its wandering gets converted into restlessness.
So unless you are meditating, no, your mind is almost never in the present. Unless you're focused on your actual with concentration, your mind is almost never in the present. You're standing waiting for a bus stop, waiting for a bus at a bus stop. Just observe your mind, where it takes you. In between this class, when we are doing the reading as well, just observe when Anmol is reading, are you reading along or are you allowing your mind to talk to you? And if it's talking to you, what is it saying? Will I get to read next? Oh, did I read well? Did I mispronounce a word? So I could also be not engaged, but your mind is constantly taking you away from the present moment. Because the mind loves to be stimulated, and stimulated means feeling these likes, dislikes, rag, dvesh, etc.
And the reason that it likes doing that is not because it is its nature. We had discussed it in the last class. Mind is movable, but it is not restless. It appears restless because of the habit we have created in the mind of constantly attaching itself to likes and dislikes. And as it moves between them over a period of time, because of that habit, it starts to feel like, oh, it's a restless mind. But actually, the only thing that is true of it is that it is movable, which is a good thing. Because it is movable, then we can actually say, okay, move away from this and hold on to something more permanent. And then it will hold on to it. Right? So we will see all the points that he's talking about in this shloka, how, depending on how we use them, those tools or those characteristics of mind can come to haunt us or can be used in a positive manner. So let's read again.
Secondly, the mind is turbulent. Even if it is held at one place, it keeps on churning at the same place. Thirdly, it is very unyielding. If it clutches on a thought, it does not let it go easily. Even if efforts are made to loosen its grip, it returns to the same thought over and over again. Fourthly, it is very strong. The scriptures mention that it is far easier to control an elephant than to control the mind. The above descriptions of the restless nature of the mind would give the idea that perhaps it would be impossible to control the mind. This is why Arjuna thinks that it is as difficult to keep the movements of the mind in check as it is to check the movements of the wind. But all the difficulties enumerated above become helpful simply by the firmness of the intellect. Being of a shifting nature implies the hope that the mind may shift to contemplation of the Lord in the same manner as it contemplates on worldly enjoyments. Being of a churning, unyielding, and a strong nature, if once it tastes the bliss of divine contemplation, it would hold on to that as well, as it is now holding on to the worldly enjoyments.
So this is something Tuna always says, right? A mind can be used, is our most powerful tool to actually attain divinity. It's just about directing it in the right direction. I mean, I have examples for each of these: the turbulent, the unyielding, the very strong. But I feel as if it's also very self-explanatory.
But that's why it is so important, right? It is movable, great property, unless not channelized correctly. It churns at the same place. This is what actually helps us do manan. Right? So if we direct our mind to the right thought and we put it to do the manan, instead of doing the manan on worldly activities, if we do the manan on the principles and how it applies to ourselves, over a period of time, it will become our habit to do that manan. And then it becomes very unyielding. So after manan, when we do nidhi dhyasa and we try and put it into practice every single day, then slowly what happens is that our habits start to change. And then the mind will hold on to those good habits just as strongly as today it is holding on to some of the past bad habits, right? And finally, it is very strong, which is extremely good. The moment it holds on to something good, then we know that our life is made. That is why we have to use a very strong intellect to direct the mind. You cannot control the mind, but you can direct it correctly. And that is going to be our major focus all the time. Build your intellect, make it strong enough. And that is why the last part of Gita, the last 6 chapters, are Gyan Yoga, the knowledge that will help our intellect become even stronger. That will then direct our mind to the Bhakti Yoga, which will be the next 6 chapters. And through that entire journey, when we come back to the first 6 chapters, it will be a phenomenal difference in how we act in this world, how our karma yoga will get done. So all of them are a revolving circle. It's a virtuous cycle, right? Not actually a circle. It's like a revolving cycle that takes us, over and over above. And all of them will feed into the other. Okay.
Close up.
Okay. We have 10 minutes. Can I just take the last?
He'll be waiting there for 15 minutes. And then she can connect.
So I think we'll need to close the class today 10 minutes earlier. You have to go and pick up Vedant. So I think maybe we'll have to stop it here. And then we'll take from Shloka 35. And there are, in the next class, I also want to touch upon, as a continuation of 34 and going into 35, we will talk about the golden principles of meditation. Okay, so we'll do that at the start of next class. Thank you. So that's Kavita.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मार् अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ ॐ